The brilliant Douglas Murray appeared on Mark Levin's show recently over on Fox. And, well, he had quite a lot to say, but there's one particular clip that is going relatively viral at the moment of Douglas explaining that over in New York, you've got jihadis, Islamic individuals teaming up with Marxists. Like, it's interesting how you've got socialist Marxist types that are somewhat siding and defending Islamists. And they're now teaming up because apparently their values somewhat align against the West and against democracy. And they want to bring about a new kind of utopia for themselves, to destroy capitalism as a whole, even though capitalism is the thing that actually makes them. But if they can get control, they can change it to suit their own little narratives and belief system, which would be very, very dangerous for the vast majority. And Douglas has been speaking about this for quite some time, War on the West, and even in his latest book on democracies and death cults, and even the War on the West too. Like, that was, all of his books have been in some way alluding to what is actually taking place in our world. And if we're not careful, I mean, the West has already fallen. I mean, the UK recently introduced new voting laws. You can have 16-year-olds now vote. That's how you rig an election, ladies and gentlemen, by introducing 16-year-olds that have got no life experience whatsoever, and even 18-year-olds barely have much life experience, and you're going, all right, vote. And their brain cells are just like, oh, I'm going to see this on TikTok. I love this. I'm going to vote for him. Haven't done much thinking at all. And that's how you sway an election. Quite easily, actually. You got to have young people that have somewhat of a brain to be able to vote right. But nevertheless, the UK has fallen, and you're going to see a lot more destruction because of it. And then also over in New York, you've got Mandani, who wants to bring about this new Marxist utopia, and he's also an Islamist. Wants to bring about Sharia, ladies and gentlemen. And it's interesting because it looks as if New York will vote him in. And if they do, New York is done because he wants to defund the police. He doesn't like the police. Also, if you have a domestic violence, police don't show up. Can't have police showing up at a domestic violence case. No way. Because God forbid the police actually save a woman from being bashed or save a man from being bashed. Wow. That's bad, isn't it? Also, he wants free stuff. You throw out the word free, mate, everyone just goes, oh, I love this. Exactly what Albanese did here in Australia. Free Medicare. Oh, people don't realize that they're the ones that actually are paying for it come tax time. And by the way, if you're a small business owner, we pay a lot more. So I was not happy about that. Anyway, getting back on to Douglas Murray. Douglas Murray explains the link between Zahadi and the Marxists teaming up. Have a watch of this.
For a long time. Isn't that part of the problem when it comes to immigration and education and all the rest of it?
Absolutely it is. I mean, the amazing thing is, Mark, that all of these things are getting worse, certainly in the case of the mayoral race in New York that you just mentioned. But people like you have diagnosed these problems for decades, I mean, we have known for even longer, we've known for 50, 60 years, the rot in the universities, for instance. We've known about this, and yet it gets worse and worse. The key thing, as I've written about in a number of my books, has been that we have been inculcating, spreading, indoctrinating a new generation of Americans into anti-Westernism. And anti-Westernism can be anti the United States of America, it can be anti-capitalism, it can be anti any number of things. But one of the things, of course, is it's always anti-Israel. And that's one of the reasons why we've seen this obscene meeting place, this extraordinary coalition of so-called progressives and the most regressive groups on the planet, regimes, these so-called progressive groups in New York that would like to think that they're the main force behind Mamdani, for instance, they think of themselves as progressives, but they fly the flags of terrorist groups. They chant support for martyrs. They call for even though in has killed, among other things, American students having coffee at a cafeteria in an Israeli university during the Second Intifada. Yet still, these people call for these things. It doesn't make any sense until one just realizes that the one thing all these groups have in common is that they're anti-West, they're anti-us, in favor of anything, so long as it doesn't come from here.
Well said. And you see this mix, this fusion of the Marxists. I'm sick of them calling them socialists. They're Marxists and the Islamists. And you see the combination of these two. And it's because they have one thing in common, don't they? That is the hate for the Enlightenment, hate for individual liberty, hate for capitalism, which is basically the economic manifestation of liberty. In other words, centralization of coercive power. That's what they stand for, right?
Yes, absolutely. And it's all that old-fashioned Marxism, as you know. It's all that old-fashioned Marxism, but with this weird sprinkling now of Transgenderism on the top as well. I mean, and the most Islamist of mindsets. I mentioned in my column in the New York Post this week, just consider the fact that Mamdani, the lead candidate to run the biggest, most important city in the United States of America, New York City, has called for the arrest of the Israeli prime minister if he were to set foot in New York City, has called the elected prime minister of India a war criminal. Why would anyone single out these people? Why would somebody single out a Hindu leader and the world's only Jewish state's leader? It's because that's just Islamist sectarian politics. You never hear these people calling for the arrest of the Ayatollahs if they come to the United Nations General Assembly. You never hear them calling for the arrest of the president of Turkey, who's literally still occupying half of Cyprus, which is an EU member state, and has been oppressing the stateless people, the Kurds. You never hear any of that. This is Marxism with this sprinkling of Islamist politics on the top. And, many of us have always hoped that this coalition would fall apart under the weight of its own contradictions, because they are absolutely manifold, the number of contradictions. But actually, it needs much more than that. In my view, it needs decent, ordinary Americans to come out and say, this weird fringe minority obsession, you can have that, but that's not us. That's not the United States of America. That's not where the mainstream here is. 1 million people might vote for Mamdani. There are 5 million people who can vote in New York mayoral elections. And this all relies, as in so many other... I'm shocked.
Just made some very great points. We have indoctrinated these young people with this anti-Westernism ideal, and you see it on college campuses in the US. It's quite evident. They're not really smart enough to think, the history books say that Marxism doesn't actually work. Marx was a leech, man. The man was broke, and he stole money from people that were close to him. He never bathed. He stunk. His marriages didn't last. He was, and this is the guy that people actually look up to. You know why? Because it's fluff. Fluff came out of his mouth. Oh, this would be great if we had this, right? A new alternative. But Marxism is dangerous. It's severely dangerous. It's what happens when you get World War II, Nazism. Very, very similar ideals, if you ask me. And nowadays, you've got, Mamdani acting as if like he is going to bring about a new New York. I'm going to save New York. Really? That's very interesting. Keeping in mind that an Islamist terrorist group bombed, or not just bombed, but flew planes into Twin Towers, 9/11, and now New York wants to vote in an Islamist. Did you ever see anything that wild before? Oh, how times have sadly changed, because you've got, as Douglas pointed out, this young Westernism that is slowly bred rot in people's brains, and they're not smart enough to actually see it. Oh, and by the way, I do want to comment about this because I think it's truly horrific. And I have said that if I see Israel doing anything that I hate and disagree with, I'll be calling it out. Recently, Israel, and we want answers for this, Israel bombed the Catholic Church, the only Catholic church, I believe, in Gaza. They bombed it and killed several people. And I'm not happy about it. Why? It seems as if they deliberately targeted the Catholic Church. Are you going to say that the Catholic Church had weapons and that they were helping Hamas? Is that what you're trying to tell me? Israel? Trump demanded answers from Netanyahu, and I wonder if we're actually going to get any answers. But even Netanyahu apologized for it. He's going to launch an investigation. I wonder whether that's going to reveal anything. Like, I think it's time that we have peace, don't you? I really do. I understand Israel's doing the world a huge favor. We're trying to destroy the Islamic regime, but like going after Catholic churches and other stuff like that, no. I know this is not happening all the time, and this is one example, but far out, man. That is actually wrong and twisted. And I think the ones that did it should be brought to account. I really do. Anyway, that's enough from me, but you guys take care, be blessed, and I'll see you all in the next video.